Good afternoon, Bryan College Station. Welcome to the Beliucci Hour lunch live on Sports Radio 1150 The Zone 102.7 FM. I am your host, Ryan Brauninger. We are at the Tap here on Harvey Road as we are every Monday and Thursday to talk all things Aggie sports with you until 1 o'clock. Little changeover if you've been listening to this to us on the radio dial. No longer on 102.7 FM, now on 93.7 FM. And as always, on Sports Radio 1150 The Zone, KZNE. If you're looking to come grab a great bite for lunch, come check out the Tab's great lunch menu, $8.49 burger basket. And I can't read the board again. We got to do something about the tint of this marker. I can't see it on stage, or maybe I just need to look at it when I come in. Anything. Anyway, all things great on the lunch menu here at the Tab. Don't forget, tonight, karaoke, Wednesday nights, piano bar, and if you got anything else you want to need to know, and Tuesdays and Fridays, crawfish now at the Tap. For more information, visit their website, tapbcs.com. A lot of stuff to get to. Very interesting weekend for Aggie baseball, I thought. Tough weekend. You walked into, or you have a Saturday game where you've got a lead in the ninth inning with 2 strikes and 2 outs, and you give up a 2-run home run by your closer who's been really, really good this year, and end up dropping a 15-inning affair on Saturday, and then yesterday go back into extra innings and walk out with a tie due to SEC travel restrictions, which is always odd, but before the weekend, those times are agreed upon by the 2 coaches, and if the game goes past, you can't start an inning past a certain time, and that's what A&M got into yesterday with Mizzou. So as odd as it may seem, you split a 3-game series, but you didn't lose it and you didn't win it, and A&M actually moves up a spot in the polls to number 9 in the country with the biggest midweek of the season tomorrow night in Austin at Dish Falk Field against the Texas Longhorns, who themselves trailed in all 3 games on the weekend, but end up rallying and sweeping Xavier because not everybody –
you're comparing the two.
No, not everybody plays baseball in the Big 12. So as much grief as the non-SEC members want to give the SEC football schedule about that late non-conference series, the Big 12 does it in baseball, and Texas hosted Xavier. The biggest news, Liucci, I think for A&M baseball was on back-to-back plays, you lose your first baseman, your second baseman, and then your starting catcher, Mikey Honer, takes a foul ball into, I'll just say, a very sensitive area, and is day-to-day. Bryce Blom's diagnosis, according to Kendall Rogers, who's been your leadoff hitter and maybe arguably your best player on the season, is now that he's got a deep bruise in his foot. I had heard a little different, but if that deep bruise is true, then that's good news. The news that I heard was not that it was going to be worse than a bruise. But Hunter Coleman is indeed out 6 to 8 weeks, which would put him – I mean, he was just getting hot with the bat, your best defensive first baseman. That, considering what you went through, Liucci, and then you lost Christian Roa in the week, we don't know how long he's going to be out. He's having elbow issues. So tough week for Aggie baseball, and you split a 3-game series going into your 2 biggest rivals at Texas and at LSU.
Yeah, this is it's going to be a gut check time for them as a team. You know, they're going to have to overcome that. That puts them really behind the 8 ball with what's coming up. There's no doubt about it. Now, do I think they should have found a way to beat Missouri? Yes, I do.
On Saturday, you gave a game away.
This series, yeah. I don't care who's hurt. You scored 2 unearned runs because they couldn't handle a pop-up, and so in the final 25 innings, you scored 2 earned runs.
Which was weird. The offense went from
absurd.
The offense went from red hot to just non-existent
against one of the lesser teams in the conference. I know it's a very tough conference. I know Missouri isn't awful, but they should have won that series, and they still might have. But the bats went cold, and I can't just say it's because 2 key guys got injured. Now moving forward, I will say that is a devastating blow that's going to be hard for them to overcome no matter how well you coach, no matter how hard you play. You can do it. You've seen teams overcome.
You've got the pitching to do it.
You've got the pitching, and I think Rob Childress' teams typically, historically, have had the mentality to do it. But that doesn't mean it's going to be easy, and I think they really have a tough task ahead of them in these next 4 games, and it's really unfortunate with the way they were playing. The timing of this, it sucks for Texas game. It sucks that LSU's coming in and that
No, you're at Baton Rouge.
No, oh yeah, I'm saying coming up on the schedule.
Okay.
But yeah, the way that the way that they were playing and they had things rolling, you really would have thought they were going to win that series. And again, I still think they should have, and they might have. I mean, it's not like they were showing that much, but they had to beat them in one inning.
Yeah,
but I mean which, by the way, here's an issue I do have on these Sunday games. When you're playing a team that has to get out at a certain time, when the team has to drive to Houston, Austin, or Dallas or whatever, bus there, and then fly out commercial, I don't understand why you wouldn't play those games an hour earlier at noon on Sunday with
I agree.
With a team that's up against it. I know 1 o'clock makes it you're likely to get more fans in there. Maybe it's what your team's comfortable with, but it should never come to that unless it's like, again, like if you're playing some 15, 16-inning game on a Sunday, I get it. But, at the end of the day, there's a last flight out to one of those, some of these destinations from Houston or Dallas or Austin, whatever. So it's not really on the opponent when you say this is the latest we can get out on Sunday.
That's agreed upon by the coaches before the series, right? And I don't know if there's any kind of SEC conference regulation that says
I'm sure A&M has the final say.
Well, I think Missouri has the final say.
I don't think so.
In that situation. Hey, we can't play an inning after.
Oh, I think they have that final say, but I think A&M has the final say if they want to move a start time.
Oh, yeah. I agree. And you hate to see, the implications of that down the road. You'd hate for that tie on a getaway day to come back and bite you in terms of national seeding or something like that.
It was just I think it was an unfortunate weekend all the way around for A&M baseball, but I also think, and we've talked about the last 2 weekends have been very fortunate and very impressive, extremely impressive actually, but this one was not. And then on top of that, you added injury to insult there. And
the first base situation is going to be really interesting because
is that your biggest concern of this?
Well, no, because Bryce Blom.
Or what about
Roa? I mean,
on
Joseph
Saturday,
Menifee. The longer you can extend him, he's going to end up being. And you got Chris Webber that can do that and fill in on Sunday. But I think
he just had looked so good.
Blom was your catalyst, and if it's a bruised foot, again, he's probably not going to play this week at all. I mean, he was in real pain yesterday when his pinch hit. But the Hunter Coleman was just getting going offensively. Like I said, he was your best defensive first baseman. To compound that, he was your backup catcher.
Yeah.
So Mikey Honer being day-to-day is going to force Aaron Walters, who hadn't done it in a year, to go back there. I think this is what I think is going to happen. They're going to start playing Moo Menifee at first base.
Wow.
Because he's such a talented with the bat. And
I've heard them say that.
And he is next level defensively. But then again, do you roll your possible Sunday starter out there?
I know.
TCU had to do it with Luke and Baker, and he ended up getting hurt, and he never pitched again. He just played a position. So they're at not their wits' end, but they're certainly at a quandary over there.
It's wild that in one, again, like I said,
one game,
injury to insult there, like how you can – get affected that much in that short a time. Well, think about the injury they had earlier in the season.
Childress,
I mean,
Sunday starter gone.
This is and that's tough on Rob Childress and his staff. I mean, that just sucks. That's just there's no other way to put it.
It's unfortunate.
That sucks.
Yeah,
and
it's
they're
unlucky.
playing their best baseball. And again, like I still think they weren't playing very well this weekend. Before all that, so
it took a big 8th inning on Friday night for them to pull away and beat Missouri.
And that notwithstanding, that part notwithstanding, it is really like it's just it sucks. It's bad luck. It's not just an injury. It's actually a string of injuries in what is generally a non-contact sport. Although when you've got baseballs flying around and arms doing things they're not normally meant to do, and then, it just – but that string of bad luck to happen, in a span of a couple weeks like this, you don't typically see that in college baseball.
A couple of things before we close the book on baseball. They've won 23 of their first 30 games. I think if you'd have asked polled the majority of A&M fans 2 weeks into the season, they would not have put that number that high. Secondly, what are your thoughts on – I mean, would you like to see them play a 3-game set with Texas? Maybe do one in Austin and then one in College Station and then, Dell Diamond or, I don't know where you would do the third one, or just do it. Would you rather do a series or you like the midweek?
I'd rather it be a 3-game series. But here's the problem. No, let me take that back. Let me walk that back. I think the solution's pretty freaking simple. Look, unlike Texas, A&M can't go out of conference, and unlike Texas, the gap between SEC baseball and Big 12 baseball is probably even wider than it is in football.
Especially in terms of depth.
Football and basketball, where the SEC was probably better this year in basketball. And you don't have an off weekend like Texas does. They could have played A&M this weekend. But is A&M, even if they could, are you going to squeeze in Texas in between, I know it was Kentucky, between like Vandy and LSU?
Yeah.
With South Carolina or Mississippi
and
State
Auburn,
so here's the solution, I think. Why not just play 2 games against them? I mean,
Tuesday, Wednesday?
No, just one early in the non-conference schedule, one late. Just I mean, who gives a damn? Get rid of Lamar, get rid of whoever. You play Sam Houston twice. They're about an hour away. Texas an hour and a half. Why on God's green earth can't you play 2 midweek and one at each site every year? Why not?
Front table says because they hate T-SIPs.
But why can't you do that? I think that would be – and unlike football, it's not one more game out of how many are they going to play in a year? Over 50? One more game against them. It's not I think there's no reason they shouldn't do that. And I think when they get when Buzz Williams gets here and you've got Buzz
preview the other side,
and
other
Shaka
side of the break.
Smart or Buzz and Chris Beard pretty soon, and maybe at Texas. I think Beard will stay at Tech actually, but look, with Tech where they're at as a program, hell, I'd love to see A&M. You doesn't have to be in the SEC Big 12 Challenge. We're going all over the country trying to find people to play in non-conference in that sport. I would play Texas or Tech, in basketball. Every year, here's what I would do if I was A&M basketball. Every year I would, in addition to the SEC Big 12 Challenge, one of these non-conference games, I would rotate a Texas team.
Big 12 team?
Texas
U of
team.
H,
U of H, TCU, SMU, Baylor, Texas, and Tech. Just rotate those teams and play one every year. And then some years you'll play 2 when you draw one of them in the SEC Big 12 Challenge. And I think that's something that fans would be excited about.
On the other side of the break, we'll flip the script to basketball. You listen to Beliucci Hour Lunch live on The Zone. come check out the Tap's great lunch menu, and we kind of sort of segued, Liucci sort of segued into hoops discussion. Before we get into what's happening here, Liucci, how's your Final Four? Did you expect Auburn? I mean, Gabe called Auburn. I mean, how much did you have to hear about that this morning?
Did he really? He didn't say that.
Oh, it was probably burning him up.
He didn't tell me. Well, he probably said it 5 times earlier in the show. But I'll give him credit for saying that one. You got to give – if they picked Auburn, you got to give somebody credit for that. But let's just say I did a better job last year than this year, because I'm pretty sure maybe in one of my 2 brackets I've given up looking, because once Tennessee lost on Thursday, I was out. Mm-hmm. When Tennessee lost, I had them in the final, so it was over for me, and I haven't looked since. But I do know maybe in one of my 2 brackets I had Tech in the Final Four, and that was it. So I had 0 Final Fours. I know I had Duke in both of them. I had Tennessee in both of them. And I don't remember who I even had. I think I had maybe Tech or Gonzaga. You know, I think I split Tech and Gonzaga. And then in my other one, actually, I think I went with Michigan State. I may have had 2 Final Four and one in
the Elite Eight games were a lot of fun. I mean, that Vanderbilt, Virginia-Purdue was wild.
Look, the whole weekend was really good. Tennessee, Purdue.
Yeah.
Virginia Tech, Duke.
Yep. Duke, Michigan State.
Duke, Michigan State. Auburn, Kentucky. Kentucky, U of H. You can go on and on and on. I mean, that was a hell of a weekend of basketball. And that was why I was saying it's not the worst thing in the world that there's not a Cinderella in here. You know? Mm-hmm. Tech, Gonzaga. It was a hell of a weekend of college basketball. And, yeah, Virginia, Purdue is probably the best one of the weekend. What an incredible game.
If you look at Auburn's run, and you went over this about recycled coaches and Bruce Pearl, the job he's done. They beat Kansas, Kentucky, and North Carolina to get to where they're at in the Final Four. It's the best run maybe in tournament history.
That's like Texas A&M beating Clemson, Bama, and Georgia this year. And it, because it's basketball and it's the way they play the game, it would be like beating those 3 teams in successive weeks.
Right.
And they lost one of their best players.
Beating one on a Saturday, then one on a Thursday too, because of the quick turnaround.
Well, but in basketball, I mean, that's just kind of the game.
Right.
No one's going to do that in football, right? But it's awesome. Like, now, it's funny how everybody, it's funny how in college basketball, these talking heads will rip Will Wade apart. And I'm not defending Will Wade. He should be fired. He's a disgrace. If nothing else, he's more of a disgrace for being that stupid to get caught talking about that and stuff. But he should be fired. He has no business coaching at LSU. But these same people that are trying to bury Will Wade are just now kind of just celebrating what a great story it is for Bruce Pearl, who is a notorious known cheater in a profession where there's a lot of guys like that. Mm-hmm. And I don't know a whole lot about Chris Beard. I do know a lot about Buzz Williams, and I know those guys aren't thought of like that in the profession. And that's why I find myself rooting for Tech and Beard right now. And that's why I find myself really excited about the prospects of A&M having Buzz Williams introduced as their coach in the next couple days.
We'll get to that because it's kind of a big story.
Bury the lead.
Yeah. But it's crazy to think that you could have an Auburn-Texas Tech final in basketball, and Tommy Tuberville's not even involved. Yeah. Those aren't blue blood. I don't even know if I consider Virginia blue blood. You only had one make the Final Four.
Virginia's not I'd say they're a basketball school. They're not a blue blood by any stretch. When was their last Final Four? They go with Ralph Sampson. Did they even – they went, I think. But, yeah, I mean, are they blue blood? Hell no.
Would you pick Tech or Auburn?
Right now, I wouldn't bet against Tech for anything. I wish I would have picked Tech to win it. I'm not a betting guy, but I do look at stuff and go, oh, that would be a good bet. If I wanted to get fast and loose with my money on things other than spending it on other people, I would would have bet a lot of money on Texas Tech to not just cover. I thought they were going to beat Gonzaga straight up. I would have done like money line. I was so confident that they were going to win that game because of the style they play, because of just they've got that it factor going. They've got that momentum. They got that feel. I'm not betting against them. And if there's anyone I would bet against them on, it's Tom Izzo. And
Yep.
But I think Tech's going to win the whole thing, Brauning. It's crazy to say that, but
You get enough basketball talent out in Lubbock, Texas to win the national
they're
championship.
the team that I thought A&M had in the last year under Billy Clyde. And I think had they just finished that last couple of possessions against
UCLA?
Memphis.
Oh, Memphis, that's right.
They would have beaten Ohio State in the next game. I think AK and Joe Jones would have got Greg Oden in foul trouble early. Conley was a freshman. AC Law was a savvy veteran senior. I think they would have beaten Ohio State. And then I think they would have drawn Georgetown, who knocked off North Carolina, which seemed the tougher matchup. They would have beaten Georgetown. They had that it. They had the chemistry. They played defense. They believed in their coach. It was all upstart and new, and it was like just they had that feel. Now the only difference is there was a team called the Florida Gators that year. So I think the Aggies would have lost in the championship game, barring a Villanova 1985 type upset. But this Tech team reminds me of that. They just have it going. They have that feel. They have that vibe.
By the time we show up here on Thursday, will Buzz Williams be announced as Texas A&M's head basketball? It's very rare, Luch, that you talk about things so confidently and openly. It's the only reason why I'm asking.
Yeah, I mean, I do. I wouldn't, but it's just that cat's out of the bag. And, yes, I do. To answer your question, yes. I think by Thursday, Buzz Williams will be introduced as A&M's next head coach.
And just another feather in the cap of Scott Woodward. The best possible hire that he could make.
Oh, I absolutely think so. And if you go back and look at A&M's history in this sport, this is A&M stepping out and saying we expect not expect more than what Billy Gillespie did or Mark Turgeon or going to a couple Sweet 16s like Kennedy. At the end of the day, yeah, for what you're about to pay and what you're about to commit, yeah, you do expect more. You expect to be a part of March Madness every year, make runs into that second weekend, and hopefully even beyond that. You say if Texas Tech can do it, and all these other teams that have done it over the years. But yeah, I think you've stepped out of that thing that says A&M has to hire an up and comer, and you're going. Look, when Texas A&M lost Billy Gillespie to Kentucky and Mark Turgeon to Maryland, now A&M's on the other side of that. And I don't mean they're going and ripping somebody from a basketball tradition-rich program like Kentucky, obviously, or even Maryland. But what I'm saying is the days of A&M getting their coach ripped and having to go and get an ascending mid-major guy that had a decent weekend in a tournament or had a couple good years at his school and is considered an up-and-comer. A couple years ago, people were saying, well, if Billy Kennedy gets let go, maybe they'll go hire this Mike White guy at Louisiana Tech. That would have been a really good hire.
Yeah.
But, now instead, look, if you look at the resumes of Kennedy, Turgeon, Gillespie, Watkins, Baroni, Kermit Davis, going all the way back, none of them even hold even the slightest candle to Buzz Williams at that time. Buzz has been to 4 Sweet 16s. One of those 4 times he advanced to an Elite Eight. He's beaten Coach K and Duke, 4 times, and came within a tip-in of going to overtime again. He had Virginia Tech playing for an Elite Eight berth. What he did there is the equivalent of – so he took over a strong program at Marquette and kept it going. So that was one feather in his cap and took him to an Elite Eight, won a couple Big East titles. Then he went to Va Tech, and a different thing where he inherited a pitiful program, one that is probably 13th or next to last in that conference in terms of probably next to last in that league in terms of being if you did basketball power rankings historically. They had been to 2 tournaments, Bronny, in 30 years prior to him getting there.
Right.
And he's taken them to 3 straight, including a Sweet 16. He really did there what Billy Gillispie did here at A&M, which is absolutely remarkable what he's done there. So he did it on 2 opposite ends of the spectrum. He's done it over a 10-year period of time at the major basketball level in the Big East and the ACC. So I think, like I said, in terms of what you're hiring, this is a home run, slam dunk in basketball terms, and it is a definite coup for Scott Woodward and the people that help make this happen for Texas A&M if they're able to finish this deal as expected and hire him away. And it represents a change in expectation and culture in that sport and at this university for that sport.
Over the weekend, the Aggie football team scrimmaged inside Kyle Field for the first time this spring. We'll get Liucci's thoughts on that and much more. You listen to Beliucci Hour Lunch live on The Zone.
From News Talk 1620 WTAW, I'm Chelsea Reber with it.
Beliucci Hour lunch. Ryan Brauninger, Beliucci with you from here at the stage on the tap on Harvey Road. Hanging out with you until about 1 o'clock before we send it back to Louis Bellina. Liucci, got a question from here at the tap, and it kind of goes into what I wanted to talk. I mean, the big talking point right now for a lot of these folks here is spring football. So the question is, what has been the most pleasant surprise of spring ball so far? You know, I don't know how much we haven't seen enough to know with our own eyes, but just based on what you've heard.
Are you finished?
Yes.
You said that in such a way.
Well, I was waiting on for you to finish your.
It was like you were
very important tweet.
It just sounded like that sentence
I thought you
wasn't
might be
done.
tweeting, to Shane Leckler or J.J. Watt or any of those guys or R.C. or Dat. That picture was very interesting, I thought.
Was it?
It was
that
like
me and the Duck Dynasty guys.
One of these things is not like the other. Then you got Walrus right on the side.
The Walrus pushed me out into a bad angle. Plus, I looked like I was 5'8".
I know.
It was a weird deal, but
that would have been cool though. Shane's retirement party.
It was a great time. It was.
His wife
really
put it on.
Good. Yeah, she did a great job with it. I'll tell you the coolest thing. I didn't even mention it. She got him an old school, very old school Ford truck, like a one of those little Ford Jeep. I forget. I don't even know what you would call it, but really old. And Robert Gallery, the old #1 pick of the Raiders, was there. And he's
a giant human. Looks like a giant human.
You know what? He looks like he weighs about 240 now. Looks good.
Yeah.
But super nice dude. And what he stayed at Shane's all weekend. They were very good friends. But what he does is for lack of a better word, like Pimp My Ride, that show.
Yeah.
He refurbishes classics like that.
That's what he's going to do in his retirement?
The paint job. It looked brand new. The interior, the paint job. They opened up the engine, and it was a brand new, completely new engine in there. Just a really cool surprise gift at a really cool surprise party. He had no idea. And, I was saying to Gabe this morning, like Janikowski was there, and JJ, and Cushing, and his special teams coach from the Raiders, and Marcus Tuiasosopo was there. Welker was there. Dat, Seth McKinney, Brad Crowley, Brandon Stewart was there. You had Kyle Lednicki, his deep snapper with the Texans, John Weeks. There was all kinds of guys there, just all, high school friends, high school coaches, obviously family. Mm-hmm. So, special night for a guy that deserves it,
probably the next A&M Hall of Famer in any sport.
Funny thing is he's been telling me, Don't you clear out your schedule. We're doing something. You better be ready for my retirement party. We're doing something. And he's been saying that for a while. He had no idea it was coming. So
it was a surprise.
It was a total surprise.
Wow.
Yeah.
First ballot for a punter.
And it was at the Redneck Country Club where it was Michael Berry did a hell of a job. The radio host down there in Houston. He owns the place, but he really took a personal interest in making sure everything was done right and kind of emceed it. It was cool. So
do you think first ballot?
I don't know.
Probably the greatest punter of all time.
Absolutely should be. What's funny is Olin, I'm not going to give away what he's doing, but he was looking at okay, let's just say, who do you call the best A&M punter of all time if you're ranking them? And it was like Braden Mann or Leckler. If you were saying it like today before this coming season. And I think that gives you an out where you can say Leckler because, a year from now, if Braden Mann's got 2 Ray Guy awards and has a year like he had this past year, then it's him. It really is. And Shane would be the first one to say that.
Be interested to get that conversation. Ask Shane about Braden.
And I have.
Yeah.
Or you don't listen to anything I do. We had him on. Me and Trevor did on the podcast. But if you had,
he's right.
If you, yeah, right. You listen to it all the time and copy it for God's sake. If you sit there and look at those two, though, I said right now the out would be, well, Shane won a Big 12 title. And he maybe won them a couple of those games along the way.
He almost went to play quarterback in that game.
He almost went to play quarterback in a Big 12 championship game. And then I'll go back and say, the tiebreaker right now before, like, again, I think they invented the Ray guy while Shane was playing. I think it was his last year, and he got completely robbed out of it. I mean, completely robbed. But Shane did throw a touchdown pass to Dan Campbell to win a conference game against Texas Tech, 17-14. It proved to be the game winner. I think it put
Was
them up
that in
17
Lubbock?
No, it was here. Put them up 17-7. Trust me, it was here because I remember the party we had right across the street there that night because all week they were like, we have a fake field goal. If we can implement it, it's going to be, it's going to be a touchdown. And I was talking to RC about it this week, and he said, yeah, I saw it on tape that we – and so it was a fun – I didn't get to give a toast. And just a funny story. The funny story is we're sitting there, and I was sitting next to JJ and talking. I was like, "You gonna do a toast?" He's like, "I don't know." He's like, "Are you?" I said, "If you do, I will." Deal. He's like, "Deal." And then before I knew it, he pops up and walks up there. I'm like, "Damn!" I don't have my thoughts together. I'd been drinking, and JJ didn't have anything because he's like in full off-season mode, like posts his diet meal every day. He's got a chef. And I'm like, God, I don't know what I'm going to say. Shea Holder starts crying up there. He stole my line of saying, I don't have a brother. Shane's the closest thing. I'm like, the whole thing was falling apart. JJ's speech was incredibly funny. And then I'm like, he's like, all right, you got to do it. And I said, I don't know what I'm going to do. So I get up. And as I'm getting up, Erin, his wife, gets up, and she starts walking up. I go, well, I can't follow up Shane's wife, and then who threw – so I was over there. So I got – fortunately for me, because I don't think it was going to be my best speech. Everything I was wanting to say was getting said. I thought maybe I'd put Derek Leckler's hat on, whatever the hell kind of hat they're wearing. And then I was going to walk up there and just kind of look at Shane in that hat while he was wearing his hat. And just kind of, that was like where the similarities between he and I stop other than, just our friendship.
So, big weekend for a lot of former A&M players, but the current ones, spring game coming up, scrimmage at Kyle Field, just anything new that you've heard, not specifically about the scrimmage.
Scrimmage was fairly uneventful. I heard a lot about it, and it's not a lot that I would even pass up, not in a bad way, but just like it wasn't a defense or offense dominated scrimmage. There were a lot of guys out with minor stuff. Vernon Jackson turned some heads early. Cordarian Richardson turned some late. Hez Jones did a nice job because you had some receivers out of action, and Jalen Preston impressed a little bit. You had, those old linemen have their hands full with, the defensive interior because, for the last few days you've had Luke Matthews and Tank Jenkins at the guard spot. So these are two guys that have never played a college football game, and now you're going up against first-round draft picks like Matabike, Bobby Brown, and then a guy like even Jaden Peavy. So that's a tough ask early on. But it's good. It's good for him.
Mm-hmm. I've actually, not about the scrimmage, but I'd actually heard some people talking about the progress of Zach Calzada.
Oh,
and
Calzada.
And his ability to retain the playbook and how far along he is in terms of the mental side of the game.
And I've heard good things about James Foster as well. And I feel like he's one that kind of fans are kind of letting fall between the cracks, and I wouldn't do that yet. That's just my word of caution. But no, Calzada can flat out sling it, man. I haven't seen many. I'm just trying to think of guys that have come into A&M that
enormous arms
in their first. I mean, Nick Starkle had a big time arm coming in, but I'm just saying that just as a passer, so that includes arm strength. Mm-hmm. Accuracy, how quick the ball comes out, the spin, all that stuff. As a passer, I don't know if I've seen one more impressive at that age. Just as a thrower of the football. And you and I saw that at that camp where we're watching him warm up.
It's a different dude, yeah.
Literally, different. It's like Jimbo's 1,000% going to offer him.
After about 3 warm-up throws.
Warm-up throws.
Yeah.
And then he went out and followed that up. So, I'll tell you what, too. Kellen Mond in the first, whatever it's been, they've been practicing 3 weeks now, or however long it's been, 2.5 weeks. If I'm talking about one guy, Ryan McCollum would make that list. The 2 tackles would make the veteran O lineman would be on the list. But if I'm talking about Corbin would be on it. But one guy, if you picked one more than all of them, who looks like the most different in terms of all encompassing, just that's a different dude. It's Kellen Mond out there. He's throwing it much better. He looks much improved as a passer, but confidence when he drops back, confidence in what he sees, confidence, and he hadn't been perfect. It's not like every day's been a great day for him, but confidence, how he throws the football, when just him stepping into it, and the accuracy and the confidence in Jimbo Fisher's system. He's been more of a vocal leader, and this really is it's becoming his team. And
it's been so long since A&M's had that at the quarterback position,
and we've talked it so many times. Right. They have not had a veteran starter, an upperclassman starter since Ryan Tannehill. They haven't had an upperclassman starter since they joined the SEC, except for one exception in Trevor Knight for 8 games, and he got hurt. And that was a guy who wasn't in your system, so it was kind of cheating. He had an upperclassman's maturity and leadership traits about him, but in your system, he was only there for one off season. So it's crazy that we can be entering year 8 in the Southeastern Conference, or as Bronny would call it, the Southeastern Conference. And Dalton told me to do that. I had to get you.
Well, now you're doing his bidding?
Yeah.
You're going to start wearing the same. You're going to start wearing that jacket every day?
I would do Steve's bidding if it was a good joke about you, or even a bad one.
That's true.
What about this jacket?
I said, does that mean you're going to start wearing that jacket every day? You start taking notes from Dalton.
Why? If I wore it every day? I've got a good meme of this jacket, by the way. Leckler and I sent a who wore it best to JJ.
Oh,
he won because I was in the picture with a Miller Lite or Shiner. He was in the picture with his girlfriend, so he got the nod. Maybe it's 2 dogs. I don't know. But anyway, in the Southeastern Conference, they're in it 8 years in, going into year 8, and it's the first time you can go, we have a veteran starting quarterback that has come up through our system. That's wild.
Yep. It's incredible.
That's just unheard of. It's insane. And again, you go back to what Dog Day and M under Sumlin was the quarterback thing, and what hurt Billy Kennedy here was the point guard thing. Mm-hmm. And you see a guy on Saturday night from Atascocita High School go out and score 40-plus in an Elite 8, was it an Elite 8? Yeah, in an Elite 8 game, and go for 40-plus and hit 10 3-pointers, and you're going, oh, really? Carson Edwards, who was the Houston Player of the Year as a junior at Atascocita High School. Wow. I could see not getting De'Aaron Fox. He went to Kentucky. You can't really do anything about that. But this was a guy that you let get out of there to Purdue. So, again, if you look at the quarterback situation, that's a pretty damning indictment. And frankly, I'm really excited about the fact that we're out of that. And I think A&M fans are kind of underestimating the benefit of having one of these veteran dudes. I mean, think about how many of them you've watched kind of come in, and even if they weren't doing it all on talent, but just beating A&M late in games because they were good in the moment. They'd been through it. They knew, like a guy like Matty Mock, he wasn't anything special. James Franklin comes in here at Missouri one year, and actually, him and Kellen aren't all that dissimilar.
Kellen's a better thrower.
Yes, but I mean, you look at those guys. I said, James Franklin. I get between the James Franklin, the coach, James Franklin, the quarterback, and James Foster, the quarterback. But anyway, you've seen A&M get victimized by that. Hell, I'll go to what's the guy? I don't even remember his name now. He's so forgettable. What was LSU? Danny what?
Etling.
Danny Etling 2 years in a row. Again, veteran QB play makes a guy twice as good as he should otherwise be. And on top of that, when you give it to a guy with the kind of talent that Kellen has, the sky's the limit.
Not only the talent, but the proficiency to perform well down the stretch late in games he's shown in his career.
And he's got confidence in the receivers. That's another part of that confidence.
We'll close the show on the other side of the break. Beliucci Hour Lunch live on the Zone.
In 1836, Texas became its own nation. 254 strong. Because it remains is the need for
Up on Harvey Road, Luke's got a question to close it out from the audience here. Should college football copy the NFL new rule of allowing reviews on pass interference calls? Got about 2 minutes.
No, absolutely not. See how fast we move there?
You don't. Well, hold on.
I don't want.
Why not?
You said we have 2 minutes. I don't want to go too long into that.
Okay, but my deal is what's the most important thing is to get the call right. I mean, and I think this is all brought on by the NFC Championship game, right?
Yeah, but not at the expense of.
What are we expending? The most important thing with replay is getting the call correct.
Yeah.
So I'm all for replay as long as calls are being made correctly. I don't want outcomes decided by referees or umpires.
I do, to some degree. I mean, I don't want it to happen against my team.
Well,
like
as soon as it
pylon
does, then
play.
you're going to you'll complain about it. Like my deal is it's good
Yeah.
for all. Like
Have
you
you
may
ever
have to
been-
sit there
have
as
you
a
ever-
sport for
yeah,
30
exactly.
more minutes. 30 more
Exactly.
minutes.
That's ridiculous.
Well, that's
They're
not.
already-
But that's not more important
they're
than getting the
already
call
long as
correct.
They're already long as is.
But that's not more important than getting the call
then
correct.
just have robots and just you can keep playing the game and go. And there'll be one guy down on the sideline and he gets buzzed when the eye in the sky sees a holding call. I mean,
I'm not saying like I'm
that's
not
where
saying,
it's going.
I'm saying for all controversial calls should be able to. Now I agree, like holding penalties that we be doing every play.
Okay, pass interference. You don't think they interfere on every single throw if you reviewed it? You don't think there's an arm grab? You don't think there's an offensive push off on – I mean, on every single pass, unless the guy's wide open, there's some form of contact. So who's judging that? It's still going to be a human – it's still going to be a human sitting there looking at – he'll have the benefit of replay.
Right.
But on the replay, to me, there's going to be contact every single time.
Well, I had this discussion at a baseball game about, and that was what their deal was. Like, if we start reviewing all this stuff, it's unlimited reviews, and the games are going to go on for too long. But I said, that is not like reason enough for me not to get the call right.
I don't mind you including PI. And now, I haven't completely studied this rule. I don't mind you including pass interference into this and say it counts as one of your challenges. You don't get any extra ones, but now you can challenge a pass interference as one of your challenges. So guess what? You better save it in case something like New Orleans happens to you at the end. If that's all you're going to tell me, then I'm fine with that. If college football wanted to implement that, then I'm fine with that. If you want to challenge a first quarter pass interference call to keep a drive alive, that's fine, but you ain't going to get to challenge it in the fourth quarter. You're not going to get to challenge a pylon call, which still didn't work out for A&M because it's still a human set of eyes trying to determine what happened.
We'll see you guys on Thursday. Louis on the other